year is 1993. The country formerly known as Czechoslovakia splits into two separate countries. The artist formerly known as Prince changed his name to a symbol. And in June of that year, the Steven Spielberg movie Jurassic Park hit movie theaters and caused a ripple effect so large it would change popular culture for the next several decades.
Jurassic Park. This summer, director Steven Spielberg will take you there.
The film adaptation of Michael Crichton's 1990 novel toppled box office records and created a whole universe, complete with 6, soon to be 7 films, 2 TV shows, a legendary John Williams score, theme park rides, a mountain of toys, games, comic books, and countless references across all forms of media. It also gave us a really great Weird Al Yankovic song, which we can't play due to copyright reasons. And with the newest film in the series, Jurassic World Rebirth, hitting theaters this summer, we figured it'd be a perfect time to take a trip through the cinematic timeline of the Jurassic Park universe and examine the DNA that has created this Goliath of a franchise. It's probably not surprising to hear when I say there's a lot of stuff to dig through in this franchise. A proverbial mountain of history and lore that's almost as tall as Michael Crichton was. He was 6'9". It's kind of crazy when you see him next to literally anyone. Dude must have dominated the paint. The way this works is we're going to hitch a ride on a Jeep through the chronological events of the Jurassic universe as they happen within the world of the movies, as well as touching on some expanded universe events you might not have known about, things that happen off camera, and some of the history behind the making of these movies. To do this, I'll be relying on a bunch of different sources, the 6 feature films being the main one, of course, cast and crew commentaries, the 2 television series Camp Cretaceous and Chaos Theory, the Jurassic Park wikis and Reddits, canonical expanded universe books, interviews, as well as some help from Stephen Ray Morris of the See Jurassic Ride podcast.
Yes, those are unopened Jurassic Park pogs.
This means that the original novel and its 1995 sequel, The Lost World, will not be used as hard sources for this timeline since they're not canon to the films. That means Biosyn's founders will not be making an appearance in this video, but Lewis Dodson will, since he does actually show up in the movies.
Dodson! Dodson! We've got Dodson here! See, nobody cares.
That doesn't mean the books will be totally thrown out. I'll be referencing a few things from them when relevant, mostly to compare and contrast some things for context's sake, but we're not going to get to the whole John Hammond getting turned into a hot lunch or the resurrection of Ian Malcolm thing.
That's how it always starts. But then later there's running and screaming.
I'm sure some people will be upset about this too, but we're also not including the Jurassic Park Telltale game from 2011, since Camp Cretaceous retcons a lot of the events in that game. Same thing goes for the PC game Jurassic Park Trespasser from 1998, which also got retconned out of existence by the later films. There are some Jurassic World VR games that are canon, but they won't really play into the timeline either since nothing significant happens in them. We're also not including the plot of the Jurassic World live tour. I'm so sorry to the fans of Dr. Kate Walker. You have my sympathies. On the other hand, the Tess Sharp books, The Evolution of Claire, and the Maisie Lockwood Adventure series do fit within the accepted Jurassic canon, along with Margaritaville, which I'm using as carte blanche to drop in as many Jimmy Buffett lyrics into this video as possible. See if you can find them all. Also, hold on, really quick. To keep this video as streamlined as possible, we'll be using characters from the franchise as our North Stars, including but not limited to Drs. Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler, John Hammond, Ian Malcolm, Claire Dearing, Owen Grady, the Nublar Six, Benjamin and Maisie Lockwood, Dr. Wu, and his increasingly evil haircuts.
Him? Not him. Not him. It's always him.
Basically, I'm going to be giving you a rundown of the Dino-tastic universe from the conception of John Hammond's Jurassic Dream all the way to whatever the hell happened in Jurassic World Dominion. Locusts! So if you've somehow made it this far in your life without seeing any of the Jurassic Park movies and you don't want them spoiled for you, now's your chance to go. Stop by the gift shop on your way out the door.
Hold on to your butts.
With all of that out of the way, it's time to grab yourself a drink, maybe some ice cream, and take a ride with us back in time to when dinosaurs walked the earth and the internet sounded like this. Our timeline starts 65 million years ago. I'm kidding. Could you imagine though? That'd be silly. Our timeline actually starts all the way back in 1969, where we meet venture capitalist and OSHA violation enthusiast Dr. John Hammond as he opens his Animal Kingdom Wildlife Park in Nairobi, Kenya.
Make the one I've got down in Kenya look like a petting zoo.
There's next to zero information about said wildlife park, other than that's where Hammond met Robert Muldoon, who he would eventually hire as the game warden of his dinosaur zoo.
But Robert Muldoon, my game warden from Kenya, bit of an alarmist, I'm afraid, but knows more about raptors than anyone.
In 1973, the telecommunications company Masrani Global is founded by Sanjay Masrani, and Benjamin Lockwood's daughter Charlotte is born that same year. We'll get back to both of them in just a little bit. We're now going to jump ahead to the late 70s when John Hammond and fellow super duper rich guy Benjamin Lockwood put their wallets together to form the company International Genetic Technologies, or InGen for short. In situations like this, where we don't have a hard date on when events happened, we'll be throwing a no confirmed year or NCY on the event in question. This part of the timeline gets a little muddy with dates and events, so stick with me. The films don't get into the nooks and crannies of how Hammond formed InGen to begin with, but the novel describes the not-so-good doctor as a con man with deep pockets who originally formed InGen to create bioconsumer products. With the help of InGen geneticist Norman Atherton, Hammond's company cloned a dwarf elephant, which Hammond then used as a proof of concept to get funding from investors to build Jurassic Park. It was a very small elephant, like 9 inches tall. That's 6 feet shorter than Michael Crayon. Atherton is only referenced in the first novel and died of heart cancer before InGen got into the business of cloning dinosaurs. Now, back to the timeline. In 1982, according to a behind-the-scenes interview with Colin Trevorrow, the first tiny elephant was cloned by Dr. Henry Wu with Hammond's help down in the spooky basement laboratory of Lockwood Manor.
In the basement of this house, Dr. Wu and John Hammond cloned the first baby elephants and then moved on to dinosaurs.
There's also a rift possibly happening at this point between Hammond and Lockwood following the advent of cloning technology, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Life teaches us some very hard lessons.
Following the success of cloning a pocket pachyderm, InGen goes ham and leases the island of Isla Sorna from the Costa Rican government for 99 years, and they start building labs and facilities on the island. This was most likely done as a way of skirting around laws and red tape that they'd encounter stateside. This island will become known as Site B, and is where majority of InGen's geneticists and a young Charlotte Lockwood would clone dinosaurs for the eventual Jurassic Park. Hammond gets ahead of himself and starts the groundwork on Jurassic Park San Diego in 1983. I say gets ahead of himself because in 1985, construction of the park comes to a complete halt. Hammond probably got strong-armed out of San Diego by SeaWorld and the Belmont Park Mafia. Jokes for San Diego people, you're welcome.
But he abandoned it in favor of something far grander and ultimately impossible.
Whatever the reason, he decides on some changes in latitude and changes in attitude, and opens his dino land on Isla Nublar, an island that's right next to Isla Sorna. Tiny aside, but Isla Sorna translates to Sarcasm Island. Hammond signs his second 99-year lease, which includes Isla Nublar, all of the small neighboring islands, and displaces the Bribri tribe, who are then resettled into ghettos on the mainland of Costa Rica. A year later in 1986, the first dinosaurs are successfully cloned on Site B, with Charlotte Lockwood in attendance. 2 years later in 1988, construction of Jurassic Park begins on Isla Nublar. That same year, myself and the T-Rex known as Rexy to fans were born at Site B. I wasn't born on Site B, I'm from New Jersey. In 1989, the 1-year-old T-Rex is moved to Isla Nublar, and a year later the first wave of mature dinosaurs are also shipped over to the park. And 1990 is also where we hit a small hiccup in the timeline. A teaser trailer for the original film marks the first discovery of a mosquito in amber in 1990.
The first discovery was made in the spring of 1990.
If you're a Mr. DNA fan like myself, you know that this was the main building block that InGen needed to start cloning dinosaurs.
Bingo. Dino DNA.
So this teaser clashes with what the later films would retcon in regards to major events of the franchise. The teaser also probably picked 1990 as the year of the first mosquito discovery because the novel was also published in 1990. So for everything to make sense on our timeline, we're going to ignore the teaser trailer and say that Hammond and company dug up the first amber sample in 1982, right around when Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands.
The disputed islands lie here, off the coast of Argentina.
A few big things happened in the run-up to the park gate's soft opening. In 1991, after a bunch of dinosaurs died due to issues with their genes, Dr. Wu lands on the decision to fill out dino DNA with the strains of the common reed frog instead of the poison dart frog.
We've engineered them that way.
Wu and the rest of the InGen team were unaware that common reed frogs have the ability to change their sex, which will eventually lead to...
Some West African frogs have been known to spontaneously change sex from male to female in a single
sex environment.
Now we get into the nitty-gritty. In 1992, Sanjay Masrani passes away, leaving his ginormous telecommunications company to his son and helicopter enjoyer, Simon Masrani. Also around this time, computer programmer and all-around schmuck Dennis Nedry starts working behind the scenes with a mysterious man known as Lewis Dodson to yoink some viable dinosaur embryos from the island for a big payday. According to Nedry,
18 minutes and your company catches up on 10 years of research.
It won't be mentioned until later in the franchise, but the company Dodson is working for is Biosyn, another genetics company trying to unlock the secret of cloning. Why are none of you trying to tackle, like, I don't know, cancer? Biosyn definitely has something going on with hair loss treatment since Dodson's hairline makes a full recovery by 2016. In early June of 1993, during construction of Jurassic Park, a transfer of raptors into their holding pen goes south when one of them gets their grippers into gatekeeper Joffrey Brown.
Shoot her! Shoot her!
A fun fact I learned while writing this video, Joffrey Brown was played by Joffrey Brown, who before he became a Hollywood stuntman, was a baseball player with a real Moonlight Graham kind of career. Just a really cool person in the fabric of film history. Anyway, the death of Joffrey Brown sends a ripple effect through the park's investors, and construction on the island comes to a screeching halt until Hammond gets the thumbs up from outside experts, which leads us to... There's so much I want to talk about in regards to the making of Jurassic Park. Spielberg coming in hot after Hook was savaged by critics. Laura Dern and Samuel L. Jackson are just throwing fastballs the whole movie. How Tim Burton and Joe Dante also had shots at directing it. The hurricane that destroyed most of the set. Kathleen Kennedy driving across Hawaii to help evacuate the cast and crew, while also getting medical supplies to other parts of the island.
It was interesting to see that all the skills that go in to creating the community that makes a movie ended up creating the community, really helping everybody after an event like that.
And coincidentally getting help from Fred Sorensen, a real pilot who also happened to be the guy who played Jock in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
There's a big snake in the plane, Jock! Oh, that's just my pet snake, Reggie!
There's also Phil Tippett's stop motion work being instrumental to the film's creation, Stan Winston's innovations, the last minute pivot which kept Ian Malcolm from getting turned into mulch.
That's the way we did it. You know, I had a little impact on that. I like that.
It's just such an incredible stew of the most talented people at the top of their game coming together and crafting a movie that no other film has come close to replicating. It's all so perfect. Like if someone asked me to sum up the magic of movies in one single shot, it's this one. That's cinema, baby. That's the movies. In the interim between the Raptors putting the kibosh on construction and the whole crew arriving at the park, Donald Gennaro, a lawyer for the worried investors, makes his way to meet John Hammond at a mining operation in the Dominican Republic. But Hammond was busy spending time with his daughter, who was going through a divorce, and then he's headed to Montana, where he links up with paleontologist Alan Grant and paleobotanist Ellie Sattler. The two are deep into a fossil dig and taking time to dunk on a kid.
Point is, you are alive when they start to eat you.
Before their dig site is ruined by John Hammond's arrival. I know this has been talked about ad nauseum on the internet, but this scene makes no sense. So did Hammond land closer to their trailer, then told his helicopter pilot to go f*** up their dig site just for attention? Yeah, get over there. Really ruin it up. Hammond convinces the couple to travel to Isla Nublar after he funds the rest of their dig, and before they know it, they're treetop flying moving west along the coast with Gennaro, Hammond, and the hottest chaos theorist on the planet, Ian Malcolm. Meanwhile, Nedry is getting his first suitcase full of dino bugs from Dodson before all parties convene on Isla Nublar and are treated to what would be an absolutely surreal experience.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
After picking their jaws off the floor, they're introduced to a delightful theme park experience where they learn how InGen has been churning out dinosaurs before they come face to face with Dr. Wu.
Good day, Henry. Oh, good day, sir.
And a new crop of velociraptors.
You bred raptors.
While enjoying some Chilean sea bass, Hammond gets a well-deserved dressing down by all of the smartest people in the room about the dangers of his park.
Yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should.
Just in time for his grandkids to arrive for the Jeep tour of a theme park with shy mascots.
Now eventually you do plan to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, right?
They take some time to hang out with the Triceratops with indigestion. A tropical storm starts rolling in towards the island, which causes Nedry to rush his plan into action since he needs to get to one particular harbor before his boat out of there takes off.
You gotta give me at least 15 minutes. Give me the 15 minutes.
No promises!
Nedry takes all the security protocols offline, snags some dino DNA, and shuts down the Jeepel movers in the process.
Hey, what'd I touch?
You didn't touch anything, we stopped.
After a fairly dull tour, things really pick up in the second half. Gennaro and his tiny shorts get munched on, Alan and the kids are set loose in the park. What's Nedry up to? Right. Ellie and Muldoon head out to find Alan, Tim, and Lex, and instead find a very moist Ian Malcolm and a T-Rex with a great 40 time. Get her to a combine.
Must go faster.
Meanwhile, Alan and the kids are having a pretty nice evening at the world's biggest petting zoo and stumble across the discovery that the dinosaurs on the island have found a way to reproduce thanks to their chunk of frog DNA.
Life found a way.
And then we hard cut to one of the most iconic images ever put on screen. Great work, Steve. Hammond decides the quickest way to fix Nedry's security sabotage is to reboot the whole park system and get everything up and running again. Ray Arnold, the best employee in the world, heads out to switch the circuit breakers back on to get the electric fences juiced up. Ray is gone for a probably dead amount of time, and Ellie heads out with Muldoon to flip the switches and find Ray. Alan and the kids reach an electric fence the size of the green monster, and Alan pulls off just a really solid "oh no, I'm being electrocuted" bit. While Ellie gets to the circuit breaker and turns the power back on, and then falls for not one, but 3 raptor gotchas.
I think we're back in business.
At the same time, Tim gets aced freely by the fence, and Muldoon finds himself staring down a raptor, and we get just another perfect scene.
Clever girl.
He said it! Alan gets the kids back to the visitor center where they enjoy some Jell-O before being hunted by 2 raptors who found their way into the kitchen and have learned to open doors with those tiny little claws of theirs. The kids get a leg up on the raptors since they're literal bird brains who don't know what mirrors are and manage to slip away to link back up with Alan and Ellie. Ariana Richards has got to be in the top 3 greatest screamers in movie history. It's like Cheryl Lee, her, and John Goodman. The raptors herd the quartet into the Welcome Center lobby, but they're saved by Deus Ex Tyrannosaurus, who hucks the raptors around, giving everyone a chance to escape, right before Spielberg just dunks from the half-court line. Hammond and Ian pick them up in a Jeep, and they head to the helipad, where Hammond takes one last look at the monument to hubris he created, before the 6 of them take off from Isla Nublar and fly out over the ocean to safety. And nobody ever tried to open a theme park filled with dinosaurs ever again. Ever, ever. There's a few events that happen after the endorsement team survives Isla Nublar and before Ian Malcolm reluctantly heads to Site B. Shortly after everything went deconstruction of the park began, but never finished, probably due to the high number of deadly dinosaurs just roaming around. We at least know the demo team never got to the visitor center. Multiple people becoming literal snacks is some really bad optics, and InGen begins its downward spiral after it pays off the families of the victims and does its best to sweep everything under the rug. We know this thanks to the Dinosaur Protection Group, which was started by Claire Dearing following the fallout of Jurassic World. The DPG managed to get their hands on some confidential information. In 1994, cleanup of the park resulted in the discovery of an internal report from InGen, which highlights the state of the frozen embryo still on the island, Nedry's malfeasance along with his demise, and it also mentions minor tectonic activity. I'm sure that's nothing. That same year, Hurricane Clarissa absolutely knocks the hinges off of Site B. InGen evacuates scientists from the island, and the dinosaurs there are left to survive and thrive on their own as the storm wipes the research facility off the map. Site B becomes a buried secret, and according to John Hammond, the hurricane was...
Call it an act of God.
In November of that year, Dr. Wu returns to Isla Nublar to help assist in the cleanup, but he's really there to get as much cloning and dinosaur data he can off of the island. The following year, Dr. Wu pens his first book, The Next Step, An Evolution of God's Concepts. The evil laughter in parentheses was smartly removed from the title. Also in 1995, Ian Malcolm makes enemies out of InGen, the Costa Rican government, and Hammond's dipshit fail nephew Peter Ludlow. During an interview, Ian Malcolm goes off book and starts gabbing about all the bad times that were had on Isla Nublar, which decimates the NDA he signed with InGen and causes him to lose tenure after Ludlow and the Tourism Board of Costa Rica smear his reputation and paint him as a lunatic. Old Ian Malcolm and his dinosaur tall tales. It's actually not a bad pitch. Trademarked. Not a ton happens in 1996. Masrani expands into fossil fuels and founds Masrani Oil in Abu Dhabi, and Steven Spielberg released his PC game, Steven Spielberg's Director's Chair. That has nothing to do with the Jurassic timeline. I just think it's funny that he put out a computer game where you have to deal with studio notes and writers to make a movie about Penn and Teller and Quentin Tarantino in jail. Also, no confirmed year on when any of this happened, but sometime after the failure of Jurassic Park and before 1997, InGen gets smacked with lawsuits by the families of Robert Muldoon, Ray Arnold, and Donald McRonald Gennaro for their dino deaths on the island for millions and millions of dollars.
Family of Donald Gennaro, $36.5 million. Family of John Arnold, $23 million. Family of Robert Muldoon, $12.6 million.
Probably why InGen sold off equipment to that oil rig prison in Face Off, where they wear the magnetic boots and they can't. Go watch Face Off. It's there. It's in the background. We only know any of this thanks to a deleted scene where we see Peter Ludlow and the InGen board take a vote to oust John Hammond. Freshly into 1997, the Bowman family and their fleet of yachtmen are spilling wine and sharing good times on the east coast of Site B, completely unaware that it's just lousy with dinosaurs. That is until their daughter Deidre gets bullied by a pack of compies, and again we get just a fantastic Spielberg transition. We'll get back to Ian in just a second. Word of dinosaurs surviving on Sorna makes its way back to Hammond along with a lawsuit from the Bowmans about their daughter getting injured by the chihuahuas of dinosaurs. Hammond gets in touch with animal behaviorist Sarah Harding, who is also the daughter of Jerry Harding. He was the veterinarian on Jurassic Park who helps the Triceratops with her upset stomach. That guy. Hammond recruits Sarah to go to the island and study the dino life that's crawling all over Sorna. Sarah is also the girlfriend of Ian Malcolm, who has really taken it on the chin after breaking his silence about the Jurassic disaster. Don't ever do that to someone on the subway. Even a disgraced chaos theorist who has just been summoned by John Hammond to have a meeting in heaven, I'm assuming, based on the lighting outside of his bedroom. John catches up with Ian, telling him about all of his InGen problems and how there was a secret second island where they were making dinosaurs.
Thank God for Site B.
Site B.
And that Sarah is already on said island to document the dinosaurs, all while Ludlow and his InGen goons are there to capture and exploit them. Ian reluctantly agrees to help the old ham and goes to the island to find Sarah. Ian is teamed up with war journalist and environmentalist Nick Van Owen and Eddie Carr, who is InGen's field equipment expert. Richard Schiff without a beard is great because there's a scene in this movie where he frowns the biggest frown of all time and he looks like Pagliacci without makeup. Mwah! Great. After they get ashore, it's pretty obvious that Ludlow is not there for the benefit of the dinosaurs. A major red flag being the presence of the greatest big game hunter alive, Roland Tembo, fantastic name, and Roland's rifle idiot, Dieter. Oh, and Ian's daughter Kelly snuck along too.
You practically told me to come here.
What?
The good guys find Sarah and learn that Ludlow is planning to ship a bunch of high-profile dinosaurs to the unfinished park in San Diego in an attempt to show up those dolphin jockeys over at SeaWorld and to get InGen out of the red, and they're going to use a T-Rex to do so. Lost World kind of meanders along, and then Spielberg finally wakes up in his director's chair and delivers some great set pieces. Even after the locals on the island turn Dieter and InGen goons into a buffet, Tembo manages to tranquilize the big guy and load him onto a boat that's headed for America's finest city, Burbank. I'll explain. Ian and Sarah arrive at the port just before the barge carrying the T-Rex gets there, and everyone is way too casual about a huge boat not slowing down. What are you doing? Move! Move! The boat filled with mostly eaten crew members hits the dock, the T-Rex gets loose, proceeds to terrorize downtown Burbank, and eats screenwriter David Koepp. That Starbucks is still there. I can't say the same about the Fuddruckers or Movie World. Do you need a headshot of a Buffy cast member and a $1 copy of The Making of 13th Warrior? Movie World. Miss you dearly. Ian and Sarah rescue the baby T-Rex from the San Diego park and use it to lure the big Rex back onto the cargo ship, where Ludlow gets removed from his seat on InGen's board. At the end of the day, Ian is vindicated in the court of public opinion, the T-Rex family is returned to Sorna, and the Costa Rican government establishes the island as a nature reserve where the dinosaurs can live without having to deal with humanity constantly bothering them.
These creatures require our absence to survive, not our help.
Following the big messy reveal that dinosaurs are indeed back, the US Congress passes a bill titled the Gene Guard Act as a way to protect cloned prehistoric life forms, and also restricts people from accessing any of the science islands that InGen set up. It basically made it illegal for anyone to clone dinosaurs ever again. I'm glad nobody with a ton of money swooped in and changed that 6 years down the line.
Welcome to Jurassic World.
Damn it. At the very end of 1997, literally, John Hammond passes away on December 31st. Apparently his dying words were about making sure Jurassic Park became a reality and delivered this message to his fellow super rich friend, Simon Masrani.
John Hammond entrusted me with his dying wish, and not once did he mention profits.
Does that pretty much fly in the face of everything we've learned about John Hammond up until this point?
After careful consideration, I've decided not to endorse your park. So have I.
Yes. Yes, it does.
These creatures require our absence to survive, not our help.
Very funny his dying words are like, please make sure my dinosaur park becomes real and not, I don't know, where are my grandchildren? But I digress. Shortly after Hammond gets a permanent license to chill, Masrani buys out InGen completely in 1998. A year later, Masrani Global gains limited access to both Nublar and Sorna, probably with the help of lots and lots of money. If you ever visited the now offline Masrani Global website, there was a terminal that you could access to see a timeline of events and entries from Dr. Wu, Human Snowman Vic Hoskins, as well as an entry from Simon Masrani where he talks about holding an infant Parasaurolophus in 1999 while visiting an InGen lab, which highlights that InGen really never stopped working on cloning dinosaurs. In the year 2000, Dr. Wu and engineers at InGen's San Diego laboratory developed technology that allows them to scrape dino DNA from fossil fragments, which will eventually lead to cloning aquatic dinosaurs like the Mosasaur, a thing that will never be bad for anyone. And in 2001, we finally get back to the island, Isla Sorna in this case, in the third film, Jurassic Park 3, directed by Joe Johnston, who you may know as the director of The Rocketeer, an absolutely perfect movie.
I may not make an honest buck, but I'm 100% American. And I don't work for no two-bit Nazi. Let it go.
The production history of Jurassic Park 3 is a wild mess. The script went through constant changes and rewrites even during shooting. Originally, it was going to be about Alan Grant surviving on one of the islands, like some kind of Robinson Crusoe type, living off the land and residing in a treehouse. Sam Neill even turned down a role in The Lord of the Rings to reprise his role as Alan Grant. It's gotta sting. The script changed hands a lot, from Craig Rosenberg to Peter Buckman to eventually Jim Taylor and Alexander Payne. Yes, that Alexander Payne.
You are and always have been penis cancer in human form.
Actor William H. Macy talked to TV Guide back in 2000 about the experience of making the movie.
The script has been evolving and being rewritten as we go. And what you want to say is, who launched a $100 million ship without a rudder, and who's getting fired for this? But that's the way it goes. That's the way they make these movies. Big deal. I think someone should be shot, but I'm not in charge.
If that wasn't enough, Joe Johnston summed up directing the movie pretty succinctly, calling the experience
a living hell on a daily basis.
Despite all that, it's a pretty fun movie. At least I think so. But now, back to the timeline. In May of that year, 12-year-old Eric Kirby and his mom's boyfriend Ben go on a not super legal parasailing excursion around Isla Sorna, which is still off limits to the public. The trip hits a literal snag as the boat sails through some murder fog, leaving Eric and Ben to cut loose and parachute down to the island below. About 7 weeks later, Alan Grant is hanging out with Ellie, her 2 kids, and her husband Mark Degler, who works for the State Department.
So you know Mark's been working for the State Department now.
Alan has been puttering around mostly, trying to fund his research on raptors and doing lectures to audiences who just want to hear about his time on Jurassic Park.
Does anyone have a question that does not relate to Jurassic Park?
Alan returns to his struggling dig site in Montana, where he and Team Hunk Billy Brennan meet Paul Kirby, who tries to recruit Alan to be his personal tour guide to Isla Sorna, and probably sell him some undercoat in the process. Desperate for cash, Alan takes the gig, and we get one of my favorite moments in the entire franchise.
Alan! Alan!
Great stuff. I do not like that. Get out of here. Turns out the Kirbys are not to be trusted, and their cadre of Bush League pilots land their plane on the island, which goes well for about 30 seconds.
We have to leave now!
The beleaguered bunch come face to face with the big bad of this movie, the Spinosaurus. It's fins to the left, fins to the right, and T. Leone is the main bait in town for most of the carnivores they come across. After surviving a Rube Goldberg-esque amount of danger, Paul comes clean about their little ruse and learns he doesn't know about Costa Rican geography.
I have never been on this island.
Sure you have. You wrote that book.
That was Isla Nublar. This is Isla Sorna.
They come across a skeleton wearing Ben's clothes, and Alan stumbles onto just a mess of raptor eggs before they discover the remains of a testing facility that was decimated by Hurricane Clarissa.
This is how you make dinosaurs?
No. This is how you play God.
Some raptor hijinks ensue, and Michael Jeter and his dancing feet get cut out from under him. I love that Michael Jeter ran how he danced. Go watch him in Grand Hotel, he's incredible. Alan is rescued by Eric, who has been surviving on Crunch Bars and becoming the Jim Bridger of Isla Sorna.
This is T-Rex P. How'd you get it?
You don't want to know.
Alan reunites Eric with his parents. There's a really rad pterodon showdown. Billy goes over the falls, and Alan uses their satellite phone to call Ellie for help while the Spinosaurus attempts to drown them.
The river! Save me!
After returning raptor eggs that Billy pocketed and playing the dino flute in F sharp, the four of them find their way to the shoreline and are greeted by the Navy and the Marines.
She said the Navy and the Marines.
That's what I said. Also, are my taxes paying for all of this just for 5 people? I say 5 because, surprise, Billy is alive, everyone gets escorted off of Sorna, and the Kirbys fall back in love with each other. All it took was a traumatic experience and the grisly deaths of 4 innocent people. There's a big gap of time between when Alan and the Kirbys leave Sorna and when we meet up with Claire Dearing and Owen Grady at Jurassic World, but there is a lot that happens off-screen while the franchise took a break for 14 years. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on your love for ridiculous ideas, we never got Jurassic Park 4, which you can find the full script online. In the scrap screenplay for JP4, dinosaurs exist in the modern world as daily annoyances mostly, and John Hammond hires a former soldier named Nick Harris to go back to Isla Nublar and retrieve the embryos that Nedry stole in an attempt to create dinosaurs to fight other dinosaurs. Also, there's like an evil scientist lab in a castle in Switzerland that's splicing dinosaur DNA with dog and human DNA to create super soldiers who will be controlled via brain implants. Very odd script, especially because it was written by filmmaker John Sayles, who mostly made Bruce Springsteen music videos and dramatic films about class dynamics. He also is allergic to buttoning the top 2 buttons of any shirt he's wearing. You little slut, I see you, John. No, not that one. The other one. There we go. Obviously that movie never happened, but it is interesting how many ideas from that script got mutated and repurposed in the franchise going forward. In 2002, according to records on Masrani's server, Vic Hoskins and a team from InGen head to Nublar to scout the island as efforts to rebuild Jurassic Park begin, and they come face to face with Rexy, who has been enjoying a people-free existence. This encounter will eventually lead to Masrani dropping $1.2 billion on rebuilding security paddocks for Jurassic World. A year later, in 2003, Dr. Wu is still up to some shady and makes note of how the dinosaurs cannot live without DNA from other animals being added to their strains, which is also why the dinosaurs don't actually look how dinosaurs really looked, like with the feathers and all of that.
Nothing in Jurassic World is natural. We have always filled gaps in the genome with the DNA of other animals.
Wu also makes mention of an accident that was left on Isla Sorna, most likely referring to the Spinosaurus that Alan and the Kirbys encountered. I know I keep jumping back and forth between using Isla and Isla when discussing the islands, and if that's bugging you, I'm so sorry. But in my defense, I've had 3 margaritas. This is the same year that the United States Congress eases the restrictions of the Gene Guard Act and entrusts Masrani Global to safely start work on Jurassic World. Again, probably because a bunch of people in Congress were getting nice gifts from a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. Sometime probably within this window of time, gonna throw a no confirmed year on this one, the shadowy biogenetics company Manticore begins deploying boots on the ground on Isla Sorna, where they start scooping up dinosaurs and transporting them to their privately owned secret island. We'll get back to Manticore and its president in just a little bit. In 2004, we're introduced to Claire Dearing in the Tess Sharp novel, The Evolution of Claire. The book didn't come out until 2018, but it mostly takes place in 2004. I'm not going to get too in-depth on the events of the book, but it basically details Claire getting accepted into an internship program on Isla Nublar, where she meets some dinosaurs, figures out that a strain of algae is making Brachiosauruses sick, evades some raptors, and learns that Simon Masrani is not entirely on the up and up. Because obviously. In exchange for Claire's silence on the many illegal things going down on Nublar, they offer her a job, which she accepts because she tells herself that Masrani is doing good work despite the multiple deaths of too many innocent faces. Undeterred after a crop of employees are devoured, Jurassic World opens its humongous gates in May of 2005 and draws in nearly 100,000 visitors in the first month alone. We're now going to jump ahead 3 years to 2008 when Charlotte Lockwood successfully clones herself and her daughter/genetic double Maisie Lockwood is born. Shortly after Maisie comes into the world, Charlotte learns that she has a rare genetic disease, which she also passed on to Maisie. Charlotte, being a skilled geneticist and all that, manages to cure Maisie, but it's sadly too late for herself.
She fixed me.
And she passes away later that year, leaving Maisie in the care of her father, Benjamin Lockwood, and Iris, the housekeeper of Lockwood Manor who helped raise Charlotte. To keep both Maisie and the discovery of human cloning a secret, Benjamin decides to hide his granddaughter away in his big spooky mansion, where she learns to speak with an English accent for some reason. You live in Northern California, why do you sound like that?
Queen's English girl. Bath.
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 Bath. Not bath. You're not a wild animal.
Sometime in 2011, go throw a big asterisk on that one, Claire meets Eli Mills, Benjamin Lockwood's financial manager.
We actually met once 7-8 years ago, and you don't remember.
Of course, I remember.
Meanwhile, the fiendish Dr. Wu is still up to his Frankenstein nonsense and creates the Scorpius Rex deep below Isla Nublar.
I have created the world's first hybrid dinosaur, the Scorpius Rex.
A dinosaur so deadly and creepy that even Hank keeps it in cryosleep in a secret tunnel system.
I've decided to put the Scorpius into cryogenic suspension indefinitely.
We'll get back to that nightmare in a little bit, too.
Mr. Masrani was not pleased. Called the Scorpius too ugly to put on display.
In 2012, Simon gives Henry full reign to create a new dinosaur species after the park's investors want something new and exciting.
Who authorized you to do this?
You did? This leads Dr. Wu to create his second hybrid dinosaur, the Indominus Rex. That same year, the Integrated Behavioral Raptor Intelligence Study Project, or IBRIS for short, begins, and the raptors Charlie, Delta, Echo, and Blue are born in captivity, and will later be trained by former naval officer turned raptor whisperer Owen Grady. In 2013, Lewis Dotson, who presumably was working for Biosyn all the way back in 1993, becomes the company's CEO. A lot happens in 2015. Early that year, Simon Masrani announces on his blog that the Indominus Rex will be arriving at the park soon, and that Simon is also going to try to make every meal from Mastering the Art of French Cooking. Who still had a blog in 2015? Ridiculous. During the summer of 2015, the Indominus Rex is transferred to Isla Nublar and kept in isolation from the rest of the park.
Is there a problem?
Animals raised in isolation aren't always the most functional.
Meanwhile, Manticore, through Cash Douche Nozzle Langford, begins to extort the Gutierrez family ranch, who are the main suppliers of meat to Jurassic World. This is when we get our first mention of the Nublar 6 from the Netflix series Camp Cretaceous. Just throwing this out there now, there's 5 seasons of Camp Cretaceous and currently 3 seasons of Chaos Theory. They're both really great shows, but I'm not going to break down every single episode in this timeline. I'll mainly be focusing on major plot points of both series to keep this video from being probably 8 hours long. If you want to really get into the traumatic experiences of the Camp fam, I highly recommend giving the shows a watch, especially for Bumpy. I would die for you, you fictional character. My blood for you. Sometime before 2015, the Gutierrez Ranch was struggling financially, and they turned to Manticore for a loan, which was repaid in the form of blackmailing Sammy Gutierrez into being a spy for their company. Through Manticore's involvement, Sammy becomes one of the very unlucky children who wins a trip to Camp Cretaceous.
So we want to reward you with a trip to Jurassic World's brand new state-of-the-art adventure camp.
It's basically like Space Camp, but instead of a G-Force simulator, there's deadly dinosaurs and Glenn Powell.
You heard that correctly, head honcho.
The campers consist of previously mentioned Sammy Gutierrez, dino nerd Darius Bowman, social media influencer Brooklyn, no last name, socially awkward track and field star Yasmina Fadula, walking milk carton kid Ben Pincus, and rich little jerk Kenji Khan.
Greetings, my dudes! Kenji is here, so let the party commence!
The campers spend some time touring genetics labs, secretly stealing saliva samples, getting in trouble with Dr. Wu, and they are some of the first civilians to witness the Indominus Rex up close. We'll circle back to the Nublar 6 in just a minute, because now it's time to strap on some heels and run from a dinosaur that kills for pleasure. In December of 2015, we meet back up with Claire Deering, who is now the park operations manager at Jurassic World, as she gives a tour to new investors looking to sponsor an attraction at the park.
What do you have in mind?
We want to be thrilled.
At the same time, Claire's nephews, Gray and Zach, arrive and they proceed to be bummed out that their aunt, who manages a park filled with dinosaurs, is a bit too busy to drop everything for them.
Where's Aunt Claire?
Lives are at stake, Gray. Get over it. Go watch a shark get eaten by something, Captain Buzzkill. Simon Masrani arrives to the park with his helicopter instructor, and he's excited to see the I-Rex in person for the first time.
This will give the parents nightmares.
Is that good?
It's fantastic.
We then link up with Owen Grady, who is in the middle of a demonstration of how far the raptor training of Blue and the crew has come, which gets Vic Hoskins really hot under the collar.
We need to take the research and get it on its feet.
The wild animals, Hoskins. Trust me, you don't want them in a field.
Claire then asks Owen to come scout out the paddock to make sure it's invisible dinosaur proof. As it turns out, it's not. With the Indominus out in the wind, making its way towards the park, a team of eventual victims are dispersed and then dispatched, and then the park begins evacuating the patrons while Gray and, I want to say Trent, are left out in the gyrosphere. The brothers go off-roading and wind up getting to know the Indominus way too well. I gotta give it to Trevorrow for one thing. This is a pretty good gag.
Aren't you supposed to be a genius or something? Look, 1, 2, 3, 4.
5.
I don't know, it just works for me. The Mitchell brothers escape while Owen and Claire come across a wildly upsetting path of death where Indy is just killing other dinosaurs for the hell of it.
It's killing for sport.
After a little confrontation with Hoskins, Simon decides to handle the IREX problem himself.
You're sure there's nobody else who can fly a helicopter?
We don't need anyone else.
It makes no sense for a super rich guy with barely enough flight training and no combat experience to try and hunt a dinosaur from the sky. Actually, that does sound a lot like a super rich guy. Submarine. But why isn't there a trained helicopter pilot on the island? Why does Claire's assistant get such a brutal death? Why does a lot of this movie look like Mist 3? A lot of questions, no time for that. Simon and two unfortunate souls take to the sky to take down Indy just in time to save Owen and Claire, and it goes great. A+, no nuts.
Kick its butt, Masrani! We're saved!
Owen, Claire, and the Nublar 6 all watch as the aviary full of horrifying monsters are let loose, and they chase Jimmy Buffett away. Some people say that there's a pteranodon to blame, but it's really Simon's fault. Okay, that's the laziest Buffett drop in the script, I promise. The park erupts into chaos with Simon Blackhawk downing himself. Hoskins sees that as an opportunity to take over the show and use the raptors to track down the Indominus, which they do, and then immediately join his side.
That thing's part raptor.
Raptors attack, Claire and the boys escape, we learn Hoskins is full of strawberry jam, and it all comes to a head when Owen wins back the loyalty of his Raptors, and Claire calls in Rexy off the bench like she's Jordan in the flu game against the Jazz. It was food poisoning.
You think he's a great defensive player? Okay, fine. I'm gonna show you that he's not. It became personal with me.
The Indominus gets extinct and dragged down into the lagoon, and after exchanging a moment with Owen, Blue runs off into the wilds of Isla Nublar. Owen, Claire, and the remaining parkgoers are safely transported off of the island.
They're all gone.
They'll be back for us, won't they?
Oh, except for Darius and Brooklyn and all of them. They're left behind because their camp counselors are bad at their jobs. The Nublar 6 are stranded well into 2016 as they try to find a way off the island, and they're just surrounded by death the whole time. So many adults die on this show, it's nuts. And if that isn't bad enough, the demon dinosaur that Dr. Wu created and buried underground manages to get unfrozen and begins to terrorize the island after reproducing another Scorpius on its own. Back stateside, things are falling apart for Masrani and InGen. They're charged with multiple violations of the Gene Guard Act, and multiple employees come forward to testify about all the illegal that went down at Jurassic World.
The Masrani Corporation has paid out more than $800 million in damages to settle class action lawsuits brought by survivors.
10 years is a pretty solid run for a theme park filled with dinosaurs. It was bound to go sideways at some point, but a decade is nothing to sneeze at. Now back to Nublar, where the toughest kids in the world bring down the old visitor center on top of both Scorpius Rexes with the help of Blue. This is around the same time that a crew of mercenaries make their way to Isla Nublar by air and by sea. They're at the ruined park to harvest a bone sample from the skeleton of the Indominus Rex. Ooh. They're at the ruined park to harvest a bone sample from the skeleton of the Indominus Rex, which sits at the bottom of the lagoon below the park after the Mosasaurus yoinked it into the tank. Through restless water and deep commotion, the mercs managed to retrieve the bone sample for their client. That's about as well as the mission goes, with the tank getting stuck open and letting the Mosasaurus out into the ocean.
That was insane.
During that same stormy event, the Nublar 6 are swept out to sea on a boat that a dead big game hunter wasn't using, and the rough seas shipwreck them on the shores of that mystery island Manticore has been using for nefarious purposes. Nefarious purposes like breeding illegal dinosaurs and inventing dino brain control technology for Jurassic fight clubs on an island that has different terraformed biomes. It's kind of like that island from the show The Prisoner with the big balloons that capture people. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Anyway, on Manticore Island, the 6 meet Dr. May Turner, a paleo-neurobiologist caretaking for the dinosaurs, while also genuinely unaware of Manticore's real big plans for the big lizards. They also meet Cash Langford, Sammy's blackmailer, and the only man to ever be divorced by an anime body pillow. He's in charge of developing technology to turn dinosaurs into remote-controlled battle bots to sell to a bunch of investors who look way too cool. There's not a single old white guy with a pinky ring and a ponytail trying to get in on this. I don't buy it. It's also revealed that Manticore is being run by Kenji Khan's father, Daniel Khan. Mr. Khan's working covertly with Louis Dotson and Biosyn until his big presentation of dino technology goes up in smoke and more adults get brutally killed. After the kids pull an old self-destructing island gotcha on Mr. Khan, he ditches his son to die in an explosion and is promptly arrested when he returns to the United States for his dino crimes. The Nublar 6 are finally rescued from the island when their old camp counselors, Dr. Turner, and Darius' older brother track them down and bring them back home. And now we get to the fun stuff. In February of 2017, a team of geologists in Costa Rica report that Mount Cibo, the volcano on Isla Nublar, is no longer dormant. A month later, the Dinosaur Protection Group is founded by Claire Deering, a nonprofit that protects dinosaurs. Or tries to, at least. In 2018, Dr. Henry Wu is found guilty of bioethical misconduct, or in layman's terms, guilty of running a monster factory full of nightmares. He's stripped of his credentials and starts growing some really lush depression hair. More like BD Long. I've had 3 margaritas. The United States starts congressional hearings on whether or not to intervene with nature and rescue the remaining dinosaurs off of Isla Nublar as Mount Cibo gets closer to blowing its stack. Despite the DPG's best efforts, some testimony from Ian Malcolm seems to be enough to sway Congress to not save the dinosaurs.
I'm talking about man-made cataclysmic change.
They don't know where the dinosaurs are going to go when that volcano blows, but it for sure is in America. Feeling pretty defeated, Claire's spirits are lifted when she gets an invite to Benjamin Lockwood's estate in Northern California. There, Lockwood shows Claire the nice little island getaway he purchased that will serve as the new home for the dinosaurs.
No fences, no cages, no tourists. Just as Mother Nature intended.
Lockwood and Mills need Claire's knowledge of the park to help capture whatever dinosaurs they can get off the island, but specifically Blue.
I didn't know she had a name, but Blue is potentially the second most intelligent piece of life on this planet, and she's the last of her kind.
Claire makes an appeal to her now ex-boyfriend Owen to come along as a way to track down Blue. After watching some home movies, Owen joins up with Claire, dino veterinarian Zia Rodriguez, tech guy Franklin Webb, and a bunch of hired guns led by Ken Wheatley. A character you know you can trust because they casted Ted Levine to play him. The jock, the redhead, the nerd, and the goth get split up by the extraction team, with Zia and Owen managing to lure Blue out to them, and then Ken, like a real jerk, double crosses them, which Blue does not take kindly.
No, don't shoot her!
It's really effective sound work. Let's run that again. Ooh, good stuff. I'm not afraid to say, you know what? J.A. Bayona, good filmmaker. Have you ever seen The Orphanage? Great movie. The Impossible? More like impossible not to like. I've had 5 margaritas. Zia is taken along to patch up a wounded Blue, while Claire, Franklin, and Owen are left to burn up on the island. After barely surviving a sprint through a storm of molten lava and a really great underwater set piece, the 3 of them crawl ashore. There's fire in the sky, lava in the ocean, and Rexy on a helicopter as the most dangerous species of dinosaurs are hauled onto the cargo ship that's about to ship out. The trio managed to get aboard just in time to catch one of the saddest moments in the entire franchise. Zia saves Blue's life with the help of a T-Rex blood infusion, and they try to blend in on their way to Lockwood's manor. Meanwhile, boner-faced McDickhead is meeting with black market auctioneer to the stars Gunnar Eversole and shows off the next Indominus iteration.
We call it the Indoraptor.
It's merely a hyper-deadly prototype until Dr. Wu can get Blue's blood to create a better, less homicidal version of the Indoraptor.
Blue's DNA will be part of the next Indoraptor's makeup.
Maisie exposes Mills and his plan to her grandfather. Eli responds by pulling a Martin McDonough and snuffs out Benjamin Lockwood from the timeline. and a traumatized Maisie learns about being a clone.
But I raised her. I raised both of them.
Owen and Claire get pinched on their way to the manor and get tossed into holding with a bunch of dinosaurs that are up for auction. Speaking of which, down in the largest basement that has ever existed ever, the dinosaur auction is getting underway. All the big names are there. Old Slim, Soviet Craig, the Barbecue Brothers. They start bidding on dinosaurs, which, not to get too into this, but the market value of dinosaurs at this point of the franchise seems way, way too low. There's a moment when Rafe Spall is looking at the money coming in at the auction and it's only at $120 million. For comparison, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom had a budget of $432 million. I don't know, I just think they should cost more. The island full of dinosaurs just exploded and these are the only ones left, and an Ankylosaurus goes for only $10 million. I feel like you should throw another zero on there. In the next movie, dinosaur bone powder goes for $3,000 an ounce.
Dinosaur bone powder goes for what? $3,000 an ounce?
Some quick math, stay with me on this. A Parasaurolophus could weigh from 3 to 5.5 tons, which is around 12,000 pounds. A human skeleton is about 14% of our body weight, but Parasaurolophus had hollow bones, as we all know. So let's say that their skeleton was, 10% of their body weight. So on the higher end, it would weigh 1,200 pounds, 16 ounces in a pound. So the value of that specific dinosaur skeleton in a flooded market would be $57 million. Owen and Claire are one step ahead of the jailer, bust out of their cell with the help from a Pachycephalosaurus, and they run into Maisie before they get to the auction, where the Grande Dame is about to be revealed. The Indoraptor prototype is wheeled out, and the good guys need to ensure that it never leaves the mansion. The auction gets broken up, chaos spreads boundlessly, and a way too cocky Wheatley gets tricked by a dinosaur that understands comedic timing. The rest of the movie is a big scary dinosaur hunting people in a big spooky house. What's not to like? Blue and Owen take down the Indoraptor, Maisie rescues the garage full of dinosaurs from being gassed to death, and Mills gets chomped. This section of the timeline ends with dinosaurs being let loose into the greater United States, and a nice little wrap out from Ian Malcolm.
We've entered a new era. Welcome to Jurassic World.
There's a good chunk of years and events before we arrive at our final destination in the film Jurassic World Dominion. Very shortly after Maisie let all the dinosaurs fly the coop to all the corners of the world, Brooklyn begins snooping into Lockwood Manor. In 2019, the Department of Prehistoric Wildlife is founded, and in December of that year, the Battle of Big Rock happens where an Allosaurus and have a scuffle at a campsite in Big Rock Park, a fictional campsite in Northern California. In 2020, the events of the Tess Sharp novel, The Yosemite 6 occurs, which details Owen, Claire, and Maisie trekking Blue to Yosemite, where they temporarily put down roots as they try to snatch up Blue, and Maisie attends school for the first time with other children, and of course there's dangerous dinosaurs, and the three of them end up hitting the road once again and settle in the Sierra Nevada mountains, where Maisie is living in secret.
You can't just take a person, Claire.
I had no choice.
At this time and leading into 2021, Dodson has been having dinosaurs transferred to the Biosyn Sanctuary in northern Italy. In 2022, we pick back up with the Nublar 6, who have all scattered to the wind from one another after the death of Brooklyn, who was digging into Lockwood Manor, Biosyn, and the underworld dinosaur trade that has grown since Maisie changed the world with a push of a button.
It is hard out there for a reformed social media influencer turned aspiring investigative journalist.
Ben, who had a growth spurt and has become an off-the-grid dino conspiracist, believes that Brooklyn getting killed by an Allosaurus was a coordinated attack.
And how did she and the Allosaurus end up at the same place at the same time? How did the DPW truck respond so quickly? Why wasn't her phone recovered from the scene?
Ben scoops up Darius, who has worked for and then quit a job at the DPW following Brooklyn's death, and they two hit the road to wrangle the rest of the crew. Sammy is residing on her family's ranch in Texas with Bumpy. Kenji is living the trailer life in Colorado, where he works as a climbing instructor.
Yukon climb too?
And Yaz is living on PTS Dinosaur Island somewhere in Wyoming, where no dinosaurs can access.
What could be safer than an island designed to keep danger out?
That is, until Ben and Sammy show up. It turns out that there's a bunch of shadowy agents at work who don't like Cinco de Nublar sniffing around and start trying to take them out. Mainly through the work of a terrifying character known only as the Handler, who has a trio of very well-trained Atrociraptors.
No, wait! I know where the
There's not a whole lot of information on the handler, like where she came from, what her real name is, where she got her dope-ass bob done, but we learned that she is working for the Booker, also known as Sayona Santos, who is equally mysterious, a real nobody from nowhere kind of situation. Santos, with the help of her mysterious but vast amounts of wealth, gets her fingers into DPW and starts manipulating it to her benefit, mainly using DPW as a way to illegally smuggle dinosaurs onto the black market. Oh, and she also uses the DPW to unleash that Allosaurus on Brooklyn, who, surprise, did not die, but instead lost most of her left arm and has been so far underground that not even her closest friends know that she's alive for most of the season. The team winds up on the run from the broker and ends up in a whole mess of places, learning more and more about Santos's highly illegal murderous business and a little bit about those locusts I mentioned earlier.
Do you know about the flying and the food supply? No? Never mind.
Brooklyn is acting on her own to get in deep with Santos to expose her operation, while the rest of the camp fam gets scooped up by former Jurassic World wrangler turned French intelligence agent Barry Sembene. He also opened up a cafe that failed like almost immediately.
I thought you would have chosen a quieter line of work.
I tried. My cousin and I opened the cafe and lasted 3 weeks.
So many of the Jurassic World characters go on to work for government agencies. It's weird. Nobody just becomes like a school teacher. Like, why is Larry a CIA agent now?
Did you know that in Dominion, your character's confirmed to be a CIA agent?
What?
After a rocky landing in northern Italy, the Nublar 6, Sans Brooklyn, sneak off and link up with Ben's actual real girlfriend and her Nona, who is voiced by Isabella Rossellini.
Are we really gonna ignore this dino curse Gia's Nona mentioned? Basta!
That has nothing to do with this timeline. I just think it's very fun that Isabella Rossellini is part of the Jurassic universe. Makes total sense if you ever watch green porno.
I would approach her carefully.
We're going to get back to the newbies in a little bit, but now we're shifting focus back to Claire, Owen, and Maisie, who have been living deep in the Sierra Nevada mountains to keep Maisie safe. Owen is working with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and has started speaking with a southern accent for some reason.
My friends here, they typically know all the new recruits. Shep, you remember meeting these guys in orientation or no?
In her downtime, Claire has been breaking into illegal breeding compounds and rescuing baby dinosaurs until Zia and Franklin call it quits.
I got a call last week. It's a real job, something I could do to effectively change things.
We also reunite with Blue, who has taken up residence near their cabin, and also produced a mini Blue on her own, which Maisie names Beta. We're now going to stop in West Texas, where the Perez family farm has a bit of a pest problem. Dr. Ellie Sattler is called in to take a gander at one of the big honkin' bugs the Perez kids got their hands on. Aside from it being upsettingly large, it seems the only crops the locusts aren't eating are biosyn seeds. I wonder what that could mean. Ellie heads to Utah to catch up with Alan Grant, show off her giant bug, and convinces him to take a trip to Biosyn Sanctuary, where Ian Malcolm has been the in-house philosopher, and relayed to Ellie.
He said there were things I'd want to see.
Unrelated, what do we call whatever this is Ellie's wearing? A slacket? It's rude to do to Laura Dern. Back in the Sierra Nevadas, Beta and Maisie are captured by Rain Delacourt, a mercenary who is working for Santos, who in turn is doing shadow work for Biosyn, which we find out during the events of Chaos Theory.
Don't need prying eyes seeing me in the darker areas of our business.
Claire and Owen get some help from Franklin, who informs them that Delacourt is on his way to a dinosaur black market in Malta, where the Nublar 6 have ended up, and Barry is working undercover to bring down the whole smuggling ring.
He even trained raptors with Owen Grady, and
That was a lifetime ago, Mr. Bowman.
And he knows who we are.
Ellie and Alan land at the Dinosaur Sanctuary, where Ian, who has been giving lectures and cashing in Dodgen's paychecks, tells Ellie about the Hexapod Allies program, which is creating all those big-ass bugs eating all the crops.
The locusts are part of a larger project called Hexapod Allies. You're right about their entry.
A project that was created in secret by Dodson with the help of Henry Wu, who is really going through it this whole movie. That's the saddest sweater I've ever seen. Owen and Claire link up with Barry, who gets them into the swap meet full of haunting street food and illegal dinosaur fights. While in the bathroom at Tattooed Mom's, Claire meets plane smuggler of yesteryear, Kayla Watts, who just so happens to be the pilot who transported Beta to Santos. Speaking of Santos, she's also in Malta, facilitating the sale of the handler's Atrociraptors, which the handler is not happy about and reluctantly teams up with Brooklyn to get them back.
I can help you get your raptors back!
All parties meet in Malta, where Claire and Owen disrupt the raptor sale, find out that Maisie has been sent to Biosyn, and the Atrociraptors get loose and start having a field day in the streets. Not to bring this up and really harp on it too much, but when did this hand thing start working on every dinosaur? This one, these guys. And everyone can do it now, not just Owen? Ridiculous. ridiculous. It's also here where we wrap up the third chapter of the Nublar 6's story. Santos uses a laser-trained Carnotaurus on the handler after she attempts the hand gag, causing the rest of her raptors to go into retirement. Barry soon arrives to arrest Santos, and Darius, Ben, and Yaz join Brooklyn in jacking the broker's helicopter as they plan to stop Biosyn from doing all the evil stuff they've been up to. Their story will most likely wrap up in the next season as we see Kenji and Sammy arriving at the edge of Biosyn Valley where Bumpy is being held. You save that f***ing dinosaur. I swear to God, if anything happens, I will fight Steven Spielberg in front of his family. I swear it. After surviving Raptorfest, Claire and Owen hop aboard Kayla's plane, who takes them north to the Dolomite Mountains to rescue Maisie, who is being held in Biosyn's lab with Beta, and learning about her genetic code from Dr. Wu.
Just like Blue, Charlotte was able to have a child all by herself. She created you with her own DNA.
It turns out that Wu needs Maisie and Beta's DNA to help eradicate the plague of locusts that are making their way across the world, devouring crops, and plunging the globe into famine. These movies used to be about theme parks. What happened? Ellie and Alan break into a lab that's filled with my own personal nightmare, meet Maisie who slips away from Wu, and Beta follows her lead. KOC makes it to Biosyn Valley at the same time as everything is starting to fall to pieces around Dotson's ears, and we learn that his assistant Ramsey was working to help bring down the whole operation the whole time.
Biosyn's responsible for the locust epidemic. Dodson's covering it up. You were right. I'm here to help you.
Thinking about all the money he's made couldn't help ease his mind, and Dodson sets the entire project on fire, which leads to a flaming horde of locusts to break out of containment and set fire to the valley, where Claire survives a run-in with a Freddy Kruegersaurus and almost gets Nedried by a pack of Dilophosauruses. Very funny that everyone was mad at the gymnastics scene in Lost World when it came out because it made the raptors less scary, and 25 years later we get this. Get over yourselves. Both franchises finally come together in the valley where they encounter a... How do you pronounce that?
Giganotosaurus.
Thank you, Alan.
Alan!
Dodson tries to escape via tube tunnel where he and his Barbasol can reach a very fitting ending.
What's your story?
The crew break into Biosyn, chop up some locusts, rescue Beta.
Is that a dinosaur on your shoulder?
Yeah.
And we get our final appearance of Rexy, who continues her habit of showing up in the third act to remind everyone who the Queen of the Jungle is. Kayla then scoops up the team and flies them safely out of Biosyn Valley. Ramsey reveals all of Biosyn's mischief to the world. Biosyn Valley is designated a global sanctuary for dinosaurs, and Dr. Wu fixes the locust problem with help from Maisie and Beta's DNA. Speaking of which, the family unit returns to their cabin, and Owen makes good on his promise to Blue of getting Beta home safely. Everything is how it should be, at least in a world where dinosaurs are once again part of the food chain. And we wrap up this chapter of the franchise with some hopeful words from Charlotte Lockwood.
If we're going to survive, we'll have to trust each other. Depend on each other. Coexist.
There's not a ton of information out on Jurassic World Rebirth right now. We know that the film is picking up 5 years after the events of Dominion, with covert ops specialist Zora Bennett being hired by a pharmaceutical representative played by Rupert Friend. I'm gonna make a super quick prediction about Rebirth, hold on. Zora and paleontologist Henry Loomis, played by Jonathan Bailey in his slutty little glasses, are sent to an island in the Atlantic Ocean where the real original research facility for Jurassic Park was founded. Not San Diego, not Site B, not Lockwood Manor. Not exactly sure what they'll find there other than death and maybe those dino soldiers from the Jurassic Park 4 script. Fingers crossed. And that's where it ends. For now, of course.
Way to go! You made it through! You made it through! You spent all that time, and now you're done, you did!
One hell of a thrill ride full of deadly theme parks, iconic characters, countless dinosaur-related deaths, corporate espionage, and more raptors than you can threateningly shake a hooked claw at.
Alan!
But tell me, what do you think? Where do you think the story goes from here? What's your favorite film in the Jurassic franchise? Did you find all the Jimmy Buffett songs hidden in this video? Here they are. That's a favorite. That one too. There we go. Honestly thought there would be more. Kind of embarrassing. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you love about this franchise. Let me know what I got wrong. And what movie universes would you like a deeper dive into? Tell me down in the comments. Hit that subscribe button. Give this a like if you'd be so kind. And for more dino damage action, stay tuned to Nerdist.com. Ba